Alright guys, so today we're going to go ahead and start working with a new thing called table views. Alright, so just a different way to organize information on our apps. Alright, so we'll start basic, just kind of give you the basic layout and how these work here, and then we'll obviously we'll kind of advance as we go through. So let's go ahead and get Xcode going, start a new project. Single view, click on next. Let's go ahead, we'll just give this the name of buddy list. Alright, that'll make more sense in a moment. We're going to click next. Get that thing saved, and let's get to work here. So let's go to our main storyboard. All right, let's go ahead and do a couple just interface type things. So why don't we do this here? Let's go ahead and embed this into a navigation controller. I'll just give it a nice appearance there. I'm going to move my nav controller down so it's side by side. Okay. All right, and then let's go ahead into our view controller and give this a title of buddy list. All right, and then we're good to go. Okay, so table views. All right, so basically a table view is, it's like a table. All right, it's got rows of information. So if you think about maybe like the phone book or the contact list, so there's many uses of it in the iPhone apps that you've probably seen here, and it's pretty easy to add. So let's go to our object library and go ahead and type in table view just to filter this out a little bit. So we've got three options that we can look at here. We've got table view controller, table view, and table view cell. We're going to focus on just this table view here. So let's go ahead and click, and we're going to drag that into our storyboard. And you can see it's not big enough here, so we're going to resize that up a little bit just to fit the view. All right, so not going into the nav bar, but right below it. We're just going to stretch that out. All right, to fit the whole view of our view controller. Okay, so when we run this, give this a second to load up, we can see what the table view looks like initially. It's letting this load up. Again, I know yours will take a little longer, so you might want to skip loading it, but leave that up to you if you really want to see it on your own simulator. It's basically going to be a bunch of blank rows. All right, so there we go. So you can see we've got these rows, so this is our table. All right, so our table, we're going to populate this with some information. All right, so how do we do that? Okay, so a table view is made up of a bunch of cells. Okay, so basically all these cells are used over and over to put information from our code that shows up in the view when the user looks at it. So to do that, we're going to take this table view cell, we're going to drag it to our table view and let go, and then you'll see a box that says prototype cells. Okay, so this is the cell that's going to get used over and over, and it's going to show the information that we want to put in there. So don't think of it like putting in the rows, kind of hard. We're going to code it, and then the same cell just gets used over and over and over again. All right, we get a little warning message. We need to set an ID for our prototype cell. So come over to our attributes inspector, make sure it says table view cell. If it doesn't, if you've clicked off of it, just click on the prototype cell, and then right here we're just going to type in the word cell. All right, once we tab off of that, error message goes away. Okay, so that's the first stage here. So again, this cell is going to be used over and over to fill up this whole table view. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we got to do some connections here. So we're going to click on our table view. I want you to control drag to this yellow circle of view controller one. All right, so we've got two outlets we need to hook up our table view to. We got to hook it up to the data source. So let's click on that. And same thing, make sure we're in the table view, control drag up. And then you'll notice data source has a little white circle, means we just selected it. Click on delegate as well. Okay, so that's the things we want to take care of on our interface. So again, we added a table view to our storyboard after we embedded it in a nav controller. Change the title up top, put a prototype cell in, and then once we put the prototype cell in, we change the cell ID as well. Okay, so now we're going to hook up our storyboard item to our view controller.swift. So let's go to our assistant editor. I'm going to create some space up top here. And then I'm going to control drag from the table view. Make sure it says UI table view right here. I'm just going to call this my table view. I'm going to go ahead and connect that. All right, so we are now connected between our storyboard to our code. All right, so we'll go back full screen on it. And let's go click on view controller to get inside of our code. I'm going to get rid of did receive memory warning. So we got some things we need to do. Okay, so the first thing is we have to get our view controller file communicating with the delegate and data source we hooked it up with. All right, so basically we want to bring in a bunch of table view methods we can use. So to do that, we have to get them communicating. So we're going to type in UI table view data source, UI table view delegate. So again, I would recommend just clicking on them rather than typing it all out. All right, so when we put those two methods in, we're going to get an error. All right, that's fine because right now it's saying that we called the UI table view delegate, but we're not using the protocol correctly. We'll fix that in a moment, don't worry. Okay, let's go ahead and get those added up top here. And then let's go down and let's actually take care of those error messages. So we're going to go down here and we're going to put table view methods as a comment, just so we know that, and then I'm going to put down that you must have these two to make it work. Okay, so you need to have these in at all times. So what we're going to do is we're going to type table view. When we do that, all the methods and rows and the methods we could use show up for table view. All right, so it's convenient. It pops it all up. And you can see there are a ton. First one I want you to look for is this one right here, number of rows in section. Go ahead and just hit enter or double click on that. And then this one is going to determine how many rows are in our table. All right, so we'll fix that one in a moment. And then the next, we need our second method. We're going to go table view. And we need this one here, cell for row at index path. So we're going to go ahead and put that one in. All right, and this method is basically going to determine what is going to go in, what kind of information is going to go into the cells on our table. So now as you can see, the error goes away. All right, so right now we are communicating properly with our delegates and our protocol. Everyone's happy here, so we can move forward. Okay, so at this point, we've done basically all the setup for our table view. So up on this, we've added the table view to the storyboard. We put a prototype cell in. We hooked up our table view data source and delegate. Okay, so make sure you have those up top, and then make sure when you click on table view, we'll do this here. So when I click on my table view, okay, I've got that hooked up to the delegate and data source. I can check that by going to my inspection connect, or my inspections here, and I can look to see that they're both hooked up. And then I come back in. Okay, so now we need to get information into the table view, because when we run it at this point, let's see if it loads up here. Just make sure we're error free. Oh yeah, of course, we got to code these two methods here, so that's obviously not going to work. So let's make that work. All right, so the first thing we're going to use is we're going to create an array. All right, an array is basically a storage method in our Swift code. All right, so basically it's a way that we can contain and store a bunch of items. So we're going to create an array up top. So we start by going var, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll just call it friend list. We're going to set that equal to something here. So an array is always stored inside two square brackets. Okay, so what we'll need to do is put some names in here. So let's just put in some random names here, just to get some things going. I'm just going to put in 3. Okay, so now my array is called friend list, and it knows it's an array because it picks up on the syntax of the square braces with the items inside. So again, if I were to hold and click on friend list with the Alt button, okay, it picks up on that. Okay, so now that we have this, we want to take our names and we want it to get it to show up in the table. So how the heck do we do that? So the first thing is we have to tell the table how many rows. Okay, so we're going to go return. Now we could put in 3. Okay, and that would work, but the only problem with that is that it's only going to return 3, every single time here. Okay, so we want this to be fluid. We want this to be based off of the number of rows that are in the array, or the items that are in the array. So if we go return friend list dot count, okay, what count does is basically it's going to count the number of items in the array. So it could be 3. We could change that to 7, and it's not going to matter. Whatever is in here, that's how many rows will be in our table view, because it's flexible based off of how many go in here. Dot count does that. So that's the one line of code we need inside our number of rows in section method to make the first part work. Next part, we get a little more detail. Okay, what we're going to do in this one is basically we're going to tell Swift, we're going to tell the table what exactly is going to go in there. So we know how many rows it's going to be. Now what's going to go into each row. So we're going to create a constant called cell. Okay, so we're going to go let cell. We're going to set, now we're going to access the table view that we created up top here. Okay, so we're going to go my table view. Now we're going to look for something called DQ reusable cell with identifier, this top one right here. And what this is going to do is this is going to access that cell that we used, that prototype cell. Let me come back out here. So we're talking about this prototype cell right on the top here. Remember, we called this one cell. So that's the cell we're hooking up here. So basically we're saying that this cell, this constant cell we made, is the same thing as the cell we put on our storyboard. And that's why this identifier is hugely important, because this connects it. So make sure that the spelling of cell here is the same as the spelling of it right there. So sometimes it's just good practice to copy and paste, but you don't need to if you can just spell that out. Index path, all right, we're just going to type in index path here. So basically this is saying we're going to take each index, which is each one of these is an index, and bring that over into our code here, okay? So let me just do a quick build here. I want to get rid of some of these errors that were shown. Okay, so that's the first line of code. Okay, so basically this line of code hooked up the cell. We made a cell that we're going to format. All right, but we went through, okay, and just said the cell that is, this is the cell that's on our storyboard. Okay, so now we can format it. So we can go cell.textLabel.text. So this line of code, so since we said cell, okay, is our table view cell, they all have a text label. Okay, and then we're going to take the text property of that, and we're going to set it equal to the array up top here, friend list. All right, let me just type this out and I'll explain it. Dot row. Okay, so I'm just going to put this all out and we'll go back. Okay, so what we got going on here? Okay, so this table view function here. I just want to make sure this error goes away. Build this real quick here for you guys, just make sure we're good. We're good. Error's gone. Okay, so cell for row at index path. So we have gone through and we said for each cell that we put in our table view, here's what's going to go in it. So we're going to call each cell a constant called cell, and it's equal to my table view, and we're going to reuse that prototype cell we put on the storyboard, and we connect to it by identifying the cell. So that's the cell identifier you must have. Next thing we did is we said every time we have a cell, we're going to set the text label equal to friend list, and then inside friend list we're going to grab the index path out. So the index path.row is basically talking about each item in our array, Bob, Chris, and Mike. Okay, so every time it uses it, it's going to show up. So let's run this and take a peek at it and see how this looks. Okay, so as you can see, all right, so now that we've got the app running, so here's my table view. You can see every time it's showing up here, we got Bob, Chris, Mike, Bob, Chris, and Mike. These three are showing up here because we said here, again, we're going to reuse the same cell, and every time we use it, we're going to grab the index from friend list and put the name in there, okay? So just to show you how this could change, let's put another, so we made a new friend here, good for you. So we got a new friend named George. Okay, so now again, you know, I don't have to do anything else because again, this is all flexible. So when I run my app now, loads up, runs. We'll let this populate here. It's thinking about it. All right, you can see George is now added in. All right, why is it added in? It's added because I put it into the friend list array, and it's grabbing every index path and putting it into a row. So index path, and then it's going into each row. Bob goes into row, Chris, Mike, and George because it's in my friend list array. It gets put in there. So that's a start with our table views and how we're, a real good beginning lesson just to get an idea how they work. So continue working through that, okay? And again, obviously, just you want to leave class today with you being able to load up your app and getting that, the view we just saw showing in the simulator. All right, and then obviously, if we get stuck, we're asking for help here because then we come back on Thursday. All right, we'll spend some more time on this, but then we'll also do a couple of new things with it. All right, just to give you an idea how things are working. But for now, I'm going to stop the video. All right, so again, keep working on that. If you get done, let me know, and then we'll move forward once everyone's ready. Nice job, guys.